Syracuse basketball had a golden opportunity tonight to not only nab its 4th consecutive win, but also nab a nice tournament win on its resume and also give Syracuse fans a little bit of hope that an unlikely tournament bid might actually be possible. Instead, the Orange laid an egg in a 77-55 bludgeoning by the hands of the Blue Devils. Tonight's loss is a major blow, especially late in the season where every single loss matters just a little bit more on your tournament resume. So, what did SU do wrong tonight? Well, we'll have the answer to that plus so much more. Stick around because Orange Press Pass starts right now. Hey, welcome back to the CitrusTV studios, everybody. Anthony Vasquez, Jesse Cook, and Chilekasi, Adele here to break this one down. Syracuse, an embarrassing, bad loss to Duke, 77-55 your final. So, guys, let's jump right in. Jesse, what upsets you the most about tonight's loss?
I think when it comes to Syracuse, it's that passing game. The Orange were very uncoordinated, and I think that stems from the stat sheet where you can look at the field goal numbers. Syracuse, 19 field goals, 7 of them come off assists. Duke, on the other hand, 30 baskets, 22 off assists. When more than half of your hoops come from passing, I think that shows how well you can control an offense. Duke did, Syracuse didn't.
Yeah, and I don't know how else to put it. SU's defense got absolutely smoked tonight. I mean, I don't understand. Duke shot 50% from beyond the arc tonight, 13 of 26. They shot nearly 55% from the field. And then at the same time, Syracuse also gets out-rebounded on defense, 28-15. Boards were a really bad, strong point for this team all night long, but that stood out to me especially.
So SU, basically nothing went right for them is what Jesse and Chilekasi are saying. So let's see how the nightmare inside the JMA Dome went down. It was Syracuse. It was a little bit of a back-and-forth start early, but pregame it was Dick Vitale getting honor for the first time since beating cancer. Meanwhile, on the floor, it was a back-and-forth start early. Mark Mitchell buries the jumper to give Duke a 3-point lead, but then it's Judah Mintz. He leads the ACC in steals, and he puts his 6th sense on display here, dunking that one down. SU with momentum here until Jacob Grandison buried the 3-pointer.
Yeah, Duke is the 4th worst 3-point shooting team in the ACC, but turned it on in this one, really exposed that Syracuse zone.
And why not tack on one more? Kyle Filipowski buries a 3 from the top of the key, 17-point lead for the Blue Devils, and then it's Judah Mintz on the run out again. Q's down by 15.
Yeah, they really closed down on a nice note, but that was all they did. That's the best they looked offensively all night.
SU down by 13 at the half, and then it's Mark Mitchell over Jesse Edwards, 47-33, and then it's Jeremy Roach right here, passing up a good shot for a great shot, burying the elbow jumper. Blue Devils putting a beating on the Q's, up by 18, and then it's Tyrese Proctor one more time.
The SU defense just looks lost. They're just getting beat all day long. This was really ugly from a defensive perspective.
And here's the only highlight of the second half. Joe Girard, the nice 3-pointer. It's an 18-point game at this point, and then to bury this game, salt this one away, it's Derek Lively with a nice dunk.
You see Kyle Filipowski calling for the ball. He's directing that offense more than anyone else, and he's a freshman. It shows how much Duke really controlled the Syracuse zone. Drew him outside when they started hitting those threes, and then allowed Filipowski to work in the paint.
He's making music right there because he was like a conductor on that last play. But you see Derek Whitehead with 14 points as well. It was, again, from that 3-point percentage standpoint, 4 3-pointers today, also dishing out 3 times as well. Just a really bad day for the SU defense and the offense as well, to be frank with you.
What was wrong with the SU offense tonight? Only scoring 55 points below average day. What went wrong?
I think the rebounds were a big part of it, right? When you don't have Jesse Edwards going up there and rebounding efficiently, this is what really turns out to be a problem. You can't get those second chance points, and it cost SU this whole entire game.
And it's not like there was this big difference in offensive rebounding. Both teams had relatively the same efficiency in the paint. It's just that Duke's defense really stepped up. I think a lot of that comes from Kyle Filipowski being a 7-footer. Look, he's 6th in the country in scoring among centers. Not much you're going to be able to do when that guy's reaching for the ball. He's hungry. He wants it.
Syracuse loses for the first time in 3 games. That 3-game losing streak is no more. And now we bring in Leo Silverman, the man who saw it all go down in the Dome. And Leo, let's get right into it. Did you see any defensive adjustments tonight for Syracuse, considering Duke was shooting the lights out of the Dome?
Yeah, Anthony, what was really interesting is in the post-game presser from head coach Jim Boeheim, he talked about the fact that he thought the defense played pretty well today, except for a couple of runs, and obviously those runs involved a lot of great shooting from beyond the arc for the Blue Devils. But what I saw, what was really intriguing, is a couple of new lineup tries that Boeheim put out there. At one point, he ran Symir Torrance and Judah Mins together up at the top of the key, and that's the two best perimeter defenders for this Syracuse squad. But he also had Quadir Copeland in at the three, one of the most athletic players on this squad, on the wing trying to defend those triples as well. And it did work out for a couple possessions. The problem is that Symir Torrance and Quadir Copeland on the offensive end is pretty hard to watch. So that lineup didn't last very well, but Syracuse certainly tried some things, and, well, they didn't really work out tonight.
Leo, Syracuse tried a few new combinations to halt this Duke three-point shooting game. Now, clearly the Blue Devils did a fantastic job from long range, but to me it didn't seem like it was an exceptionally great game for them. Is there anything that Duke did really well on the face of it besides shooting?
Yeah, Jesse, everybody's going to point to the same thing when they look at this game and see what Duke really did well, right? It's the three-point shooting. When you have the team shoot over 50% from beyond the arc, that's a problem for any team. And 6 guys hitting from downtown is even worse for Syracuse. Really good for Duke, but the small thing that I thought they did really well that maybe not a lot of people noticed was passing the ball, playing as a team. 22 assists for Duke, 7 for Syracuse. I mean, that's just a crazy difference in numbers, and it wasn't just passing around the top of the arc for three-point shooters to get Jeremy Rhodes or Derek Whitehead open. That definitely happened. They were moving the ball really well through the 2-3, but they'd also drive into the paint and did a really good job at setting up their big men. We saw so many oops, so many scoop passes behind Jesse Edwards to set up guys like Kyle Razjowski and guys to score from the paint. And it was just all about the assist. They're passing the ball so well, and that's another reason why the shooting worked out. And, they casually won by 22 points.
Yeah, Leo Filipowski really looked tonight like, he was the facilitator of that offense in the center, switching and dishing, sharing and caring, as we all like to say. SU only had 2 offensive rebounds. Let's harp on that in the first half. They had 10 overall, an abysmal 2 in the first half. How did that contribute to the offensive failures tonight?
Yeah, Chile, if you're a team that gets 10 offensive rebounds in a game, that's pretty good, but the problem was they got those offensive rebounds in the second half. They couldn't do anything with them. Jesse Edwards was completely locked out of the paint. It's because Duke is just such a physical menace on the defensive end, and it helps to the fact that they have 2 centers they both can trot out. You saw guys like Derek Lively and Kyle Filipowski both just dominate the paint to make sure Jesse Edwards couldn't do anything. I mean, he shot the ball 3 times in the game. He had 5 points. He didn't even lead the team in rebounding. So that was such a problem. If you don't have Jesse Edwards doing anything offensively, how are you expecting to win games? And Malik Brown, he had 8 rebounds in this game. A lot of those coming on the offensive end, but when he went to go put the ball back up, he was just getting completely swarmed. Duke shut down the paint completely for Syracuse, and if you can't play through the paint as a team, the easiest area to score on the court, you're not going to win a lot of games, and Syracuse didn't win this one by any margin because of that.
Thanks, Leo. And when we come back on Orange Press Pass, we'll take a deeper dive into Duke's stellar three-point shooting night, along with some bad Syracuse offense and some non-existent rebounding. When we come back on Orange Press Pass, stick around because we'll roll on in a few.
Hey, look, it's those guys. Are you good to drive?
I'm fine.
How many did you have?
I should be fine.
You should be.
Go and step out of the vehicle for me.
See ya, buddy. Good luck. So turns out, buzz driving and drunk driving, they're the same thing, and it costs around $10,000. So not worth it.
Hey, welcome back everybody to Orange Press Pass inside our CitrusTV studios. We got the big three, Anthony, Jesse, and Chilekasi. Once again, diving deeper into Syracuse's 77-55 loss to Duke. And let's jump right in to Duke shooting beyond the arc. 13 threes in this one, an ACC high for the Blue Devils. Jesse, was this a product of some leaky holes in the zone defense, or was Duke just on tonight?
Anthony, it's a combination of the two. First of all, Syracuse is not a team that allows three-pointers a whole lot of the time. It's just the 7th time this season that any team has put up 8 or more triples on Syracuse. Fact of the matter is, though, that Duke did hit 8 threes in that first half. So it was Duke getting hot, but Syracuse's zone breaking down. Again, 13 triples. What are you going to do?
You know, it just doesn't make sense. And I think the biggest part, too, that made it embarrassing, it's not like you had some players who did well tonight in terms of shooting the ball from long. You had Tariq Whitehead with 4 threes. Jeremy Roach had 3 himself. But the wealth spreading of this, the fact that 6 out of the 9 players who saw the floor tonight for Duke made a three-pointer just shows how Syracuse really had no place to stop it because they were just allowing the most open shots ever.
Syracuse was also was not only getting outshot from beyond the arc, they were also getting out rebounded as well. 38-25, Blue Devils plus 13 on the boards. What went wrong there tonight?
Like we said, Jesse Edwards, right? When you only have 1 rebound on the offense in the first half, you try and rebound it a little bit in the second half. But he is the facilitator of the offense, in my opinion, for this Syracuse team. His presence in the center is important. It's not just about scoring points. It's not just about staying out of foul trouble. It's his ability to grab boards. And the fact that he didn't do that tonight heavily contributed to this loss.
And it's not just Edwards' play on offense and how he leads the team in the paint, but it reflects on the defense as well, because Jesse Edwards should not be the only guy who gets rebounds. He's the team leader in blocks, he's the team leader in rebounds, he's the team leader in points in the paint. Someone else has to pick up for him somewhere, and it has to happen on defense. He can't be the only guy on the Orange who's getting things done on both sides of the court. It's just not feasible. Frankly, my name's Jesse. I have a hard enough time here at the desk fielding questions. I don't know how I could field rebounds left and right while also scoring in the paint.
Totally agree with you. Somebody else has got to pick up there.
Well, I'm 5'8". I'm not sure what I could do.
All right, guys, let's keep it on this topic of Jesse Edwards, though. Only 5 points on 2 of 3 shooting. He was non-existent on the defensive side, like you mentioned, non-existent on the offensive side as well. Where was the big man tonight?
Look, you can't expect someone to show up every single night and be elite. Jesse Edwards is obviously one of the best players on the Orange. As I just said, team leader in points in the paint. That adds a lot. So Edwards is obviously a clear leading point for Syracuse. Joe Girard is another player. Syracuse is really good when those guys are doing well. 13-5 when either of them leads the team in scoring, 3-6 otherwise. Now, what that means is not that Jesse Edwards and Joe Girard are generational players, but that the team really relies on both of them, and when Edwards doesn't prevail, the rest of the team can't rally around him.
Listen, I get that, but I think at the end of the day, you've got to, as a leader on the team, you've got to wire yourself for a big game like this. Everybody in town talks about, oh, beat Duke, beat Duke. You know, I got my own qualms about that. But you have to mentally wire yourself for a game like this. And the fact that Jesse Edwards comes out with 5 points and 5 rebounds, like I said, I'm not even that worried about the points. If he's getting bored, Syracuse probably makes this game closer, if not wins it. But at the same time, you've got to be able to do that.
Sure, he's mentally wired. It's just that he's going up against a 7-footer in Kyle Filipowski, one of the few guys in the NCAA who plays his position and scores more points than he does. He's a 7-footer. He's not used to playing against guys who have a full inch on him. You can go back to the BC game, talk about Quentin Post, another equally tall guy, but remember, Edwards has seen him before. They grew up together.
Listen, you've got to be able to deliver here on the boards. I'm not that worried about the point total. That's an ebb and flow, but you have to make your presence there in the center. You have to make it known. You've got to be able to crash the boards.
But nobody's helping him.
I agree with that.
Well, there you go.
Well, Jesse Edwards was the big man for Syracuse. He didn't step up tonight. The other big man on the Duke side did, Kyle Filipowski, and that's why he's our Orange Press Pass player of the game. 14 points and 12 rebounds, a double-double for the Duke forward. He was one of 6 players on the Duke Blue Devil squad to hit a 3. That's why he's going back to Durham not only with the win, but with the Orange Press Pass player of the game. When we come back, though, on OPP, we'll answer the tough questions that Syracuse fans have been asking this entire season and tonight as well. OPP rolls on, and we'll be right back.
Welcome to an excellent episode of Live from Studio B.
STEM is precise, no margin for error.
Dare to forget that. Dare to have fun with it. Get weird with it. Dare to send those old STEM theories flying past the neighbor's house into outer space. Dare to program something internet-breaking, record-breaking. Dare to blow their minds. Dare to learn the difference between sedimentary and metamorphic rock. Go find those rocks. Dare to keep daring. Dare to STEM. Check out She Can STEM to get started.
Welcome back to OPP, everybody. And while we might have changed spots in our CitrusTV studios, the talking points have not changed one bit. Syracuse, a 22-point bludgeoning by the hands of the Duke Blue Devils tonight, and a little bit of a bad day for Syracuse, if you might want to put it. So let's start answering these tough questions that Syracuse fans have been having, especially this game tonight. Starting out with Chris Bell. Here's Jim Boeheim being flat out honest about the freshman forward.
I didn't see anything from him. You only get so many minutes, and, you know, if you play 10 minutes, you get your shot block, go for 3, don't rebound, you know, how many minutes you're going to get.
I mean, you can't be more brutally honest than that. Chris Bell, 11 minutes, didn't record a stat. I think he had that one personal foul as well. That's just about it. Wasn't rebounding, as Coach Boeheim said. How do you get him more involved in this offense, Jesse, and is it possible?
I don't know if it's possible. What more can you ask from a guy? You forgot the turnover. Foul and a turnover.
One turnover.
That always matters. And Chris Bell, he's a 4-star recruit. He's a starter who plays every single game. Jim Boeheim has shown that you need to have a firm handle with him. You go back to the game against Virginia, a ranked matchup. Bell gets pulled really early on after an early mistake, and then Syracuse rallies and almost takes down a ranked opponent. Then Boston College. Bell makes another early mistake. Boeheim yanks the cord on him again. Then he brings Bell back in, and clearly the lesson worked. He comes back in flying colors and scores, and Syracuse then goes on to topple the Eagles. I think it's pretty clear that Jim Boeheim has to have a tight leash on his players.
Listen, Boeheim has to trust his guys. I think the problem with Chris Bell this entire season is that when Boeheim tries to put the kibosh on his play out there, it ends up not going so well. Hear this. Against NC State, last game, 34 minutes, 11 points. Not a bad day at the office, right? At the same time, Florida State, he also played 34 minutes, scored 10 points in that game. Now, watch the second his minute total drops. Not below 20, not below 15, but below 10, or just above 10, excuse me. 11 minutes, no points. And then let's take a look back to January 14th against Notre Dame. 34 minutes, 17 points. I think that Chris Bell's stat line has shown throughout the season that the more minutes he gets, the more he's going to produce for this team. And I think Jim Boeheim, instead of just coming out and trashing a young guy, has got to trust him.
So it's about confidence building, not about fear-mongering.
I do think it is about confidence building. I think when you have a young guy like that, sometimes you got to be honest. I like being honest. But at the same time, you also have to learn how to coach up your players and build them up rather than bring them down.
Honesty is key, right? And let's talk about, we're switching over from the offensive side to the defensive side. This Syracuse 2-3 zone, it's been run for quite a long time, but tonight it got absolutely exposed. Duke shot 55% from the field, 13 for 26 beyond the arc, at ACC season high for them. What went wrong tonight with the SU zone?
I don't think anything went wrong with it. The zone worked exactly how it's supposed to work. You want the other team to take a bunch of threes, and it just so happens that Duke usually is not good from long range. 4th worst in the ACC when it comes to three-pointers made per game. This was a major surprise, and it's clearly something that the Blue Devils worked on all week to make sure they could capitalize on Syracuse. And then what happens when you draw the defense out to the perimeter? You can capitalize on the inside. Freshman center Kyle Filipowski coordinated that offense. A great director, or as you called him before, Chile, a conductor.
Guys, is it Christmas time? It certainly felt like it, because SU, quite literally, the 2-3 zone has been a gift to teams who cannot shoot well from beyond the arc. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. No one before today was anywhere near the top of the ACC in terms of shooting. That probably doesn't change, but it was an embarrassing clinic. By the way, coming into this one, the highest player on Duke in terms of ACC shooting three-point percentage, Jacob Granderson, who was tied for 36 in the ACC with 4 other guys. This is embarrassing. That can't happen. Syracuse, again, continues to gift these kinds of opportunities to teams who don't deserve it. They had no business letting Duke in this game today. It could have been close, could have been down the stretch, but at the same time, they just completely let it get away for stupid things like this.
Well, it's like in football, when you're coaching against a team, you don't prepare for the guy who's a perennial starter, you prepare for the backup.
Well, now it's time with the more pressing question here. It's this Duke-Syracuse rivalry, and I put that in quotation marks because is it really a rivalry at this point? SU lost by 25 last year in the Dome, 1-9 in the last 10 attempts, 8 straight losses for the Orange against the Blue Devils. Coach K wasn't even coaching tonight, and Duke still rolled over SU. Is this still a rivalry, guys?
Anthony, I'll tell you one thing. It's no Red Sox-Yankees. Look, every game sells out. That's a given when it comes to Syracuse and Duke. Cameron Indoor Stadium only has 9,000 seats, so you expect that to happen. Carrier Dome, now the JMA Wireless Dome, 30,000 seats. It's pretty impressive that they can sell out, but 8 straight losses for Syracuse. The largest victory that SU has ever unleashed over Duke was a 4-point margin, and then in the last 8 games between Syracuse and Duke, the Blue Devils have won every single one of them by 9 points or more. That's almost every single time a double-digit victory for the Dukies. That can't happen if you're Syracuse. That's not a rivalry. That's an infatuation.
Jesse, oftentimes you and I are baseball fans. We talk about rivalries and which ones are real and which ones are not.
We are oftentimes baseball fans,
yes.
Believe it or not.
You talk about Red Sox, Yankees. You talk about Phillies, Mets. Real rivalries. Syracuse and Duke is not a rivalry. It just happened to be born out of the fact that SU eventually got into the ACC and started playing all their sports in there. I just don't think it makes any sense. And when you look at the product on the court and how many things over the past how many years really contributed to this game every year becoming a real rivalry. I think a lot of people on campus, I think a lot of people in the community just have a hatred of Duke that has led to feeling this way. But at the same time, if you're going to call it a rivalry, the results on the court have to show themselves, and they haven't for pretty much almost a decade now. 8 straight losses.
Yeah, you think Moby Dick cared about Captain Ahab? No, Captain Ahab was obsessed with him. He went after him left and right, but the whale just kept on swimming.
Well, Syracuse was not. Things did not go swimmingly, just to put it that way, inside the JMA Dome. But when we come back, our final break, we'll take a look around the ACC, plus a little bit of preview of the ACC standings and maybe the ACC tournament as well when we come back on Orange Press Pass. Closing things up here on Orange Press Pass, one more time, Anthony Vasquez, Jesse Cook, and Chilekasi, Adele, the big three here. To put the icing on the cake here on Orange Press Pass, and let's look at around the ACCs. A lot of scores came out today. Syracuse, the 22-point loss, but another upset happened around the country. How about Louisville, the 10-point win down in Kentucky against Clemson?
Absolutely embarrassing. I think this Clemson team was ranked as high as 19 at one point in this season. What an absolute fall from grace the Tigers have had. It's been a bad time in Clemson, South Carolina for the football team and the basketball team as well.
And how about a scary game for a ranked squad? Number 7 Virginia, who has, 89th year senior Kihei Clark leading the charge against Notre Dame. Look, the Fighting Irish are not a good basketball team. I will stand by that and I will die by that statement. The Orange beat them. Syracuse should not be beating teams that are pulling that close against a ranked opponent. If you're Virginia, there should be alarms going off in your brain right now after a game like that.
Well, it also tells you how close this ACC standings are. 10-16 Notre Dame really gave number 7 Virginia some trouble on the road. And we take a look at the standings. UVA and Miami, both winners today. 13-3, 13-4. They top the conference respectively.
Well, I don't think it's surprising that Virginia is still up at the top. I think when you look at the best teams in the ACC, Pittsburgh, Miami, and Virginia are the only real contenders there, and I think they're serious teams. I know Virginia had a really rough game with Notre Dame. I think that's a blip in the road. I don't see any ACC team going very far in the tournament, but Pittsburgh proved that whether it's through NIL deals or pure talent, they actually know how to field a basketball team, and Chile, I know you like Isaiah Wong at Miami.
I tell you, Virginia and Miami are only off by one game, but I think Miami is the best team in the ACC right now. I think they've got the depth, they've got the senior leadership. They are going to make a decent run in this tournament. Dare I say they could be in the Final Four.
Really? Are you just saying that because Zay Wong went to your high school?
I may be a little bit biased, but that's what I truly believe.
Looking ahead, though, for Syracuse, 8th seed in the ACC right now. They would play North Carolina in the first round after the bye. Taking a look at the next game, though, Syracuse versus Clemson. What does SU have to do to pull the upset over in Clemson?
Well, is it that much of an upset after that Louisville game? I mean, look, Clemson is in a really bad spot after that loss to Louisville. I think their confidence is shaking. The Tigers have now lost 4 of their last 5. That is not a strong mindset around a team.
They got to stop P.J. Hall, the center, shooting 51% from the field. And Syracuse, again, we talked about rebounding all this time, all throughout tonight. They've got to improve their rebounding if they intend to beat Clemson.
So the Orange will take that 16-11 record on the road, try and beat Clemson, and try and get back into this bubble conversation. Quickly now, guys, give me some of your final thoughts from tonight.
I think Syracuse might possibly be the most unorganized team in all of college basketball. What was that? Nobody was passing to the right spot, rebounds were off, and the shooting game was one of the worst performances the Orange have shown all year.
Listen, no more bubble talk, no more outside the bubble, this side of the bubble. It's over. It's over. SU should have won this game, would have been a great confidence booster, would have been a great resume booster. It didn't do that. It's not going to do that going into the end of the season. The tournament's going to be an embarrassment.
So Syracuse, the embarrassing loss today by 22 points. The Duke Blue Devils, we mentioned it earlier. This isn't really a rivalry at this point, but wrapping things up. For Anthony Vasquez, Jesse Cook, and Chilekasi, Adele saying so long from our Citrus TV studios. We'll see you next time on OPP.